Welcome back to the 2023 International Conference for Healthy Aging and Biomarkers, hosted by the National Center for Geriatrics and Welfare Research, National Health Research Institute. We apologize for the brief lunch break, but we still hope you enjoy that. Following the physical nourishment, our speakers are ready to provide some food for brains, taking turns to engage and energize everyone's mind. So please join me in welcoming Professor Cho Hong-Yi and Professor Yang Yi-Qing to the podium to chair the afternoon session. Sorry. Professor Cho is a distinguished investigator and serves as the director of the Institute of Population Sciences at National Health Research Institute. Professor Yang currently leads the Department of Geriatrics and Gerontology at National Cheng Kung University Hospital. We are honored to have them chair this session. Please welcome Professor Cho and Professor Yang.
Okay. Good afternoon. I hope you are enjoying your lunch. Okay. Now we are start our symposium. And the first speaker, we invited Professor Bai Mingqi. Bai Mingqi now is the professor of National Cheng Kung University, Taiwan. And he holds his position about the director of Alzheimer Disease Research Center and also the Taiwan Clinical Trial Consortium for Dementia and the Center for Integrated Dementia Care in Tainan. And Professor Bai, he got his MD degree from Taipei Medical University and a PhD from the National Zhongzheng University. And he is the leading investigator in the Alzheimer disease and some geriatric problem in Taiwan. And today, he will talk about the spectral navigation impairment is a marker on AD continuum. Let's welcome the Professor Bai.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is my great honor to be invited by organizing committee and especially from Professor Yang. Thank you. Today my topic is spatial navigation impairment. Probably is a marker for Alzheimer's disease continuum. Maybe this topic is quite different from the others, but I would like to share some of my previous and ongoing study to all of you. I have nothing to disclose. This is the outline today. And for one to be to safely move from one place to another, we need a topographical orientation, including a landmark recognition, egocentric following, a route ability, and a well-preserved allocentric map. And sometimes we also need a path integration. And if we cannot find our way, we need executive function to solve this problem, perhaps by call out or ask others to go home. And this is called spatial navigation. About 19 years ago, a great psychologist, Professor Tolman in UC Berkeley, proposed a concept of cognitive map from many very excellent experiments. He said in the course of learning the maze, something like a field map of the environment get established in the rat's brain. Here is called cognitive map. At the time, researchers believed there must be some neurons or neural substrates corresponding for this function. 23 years later, these cells were found by Professor John O'Keefe. This cell is called place cell. The place cells basically is in the hippocampus, and the place cell can build up an inner map of the environment. And several decades later, the Moses in 2005 found another nerve cell in nearby of the brain called the entorhinal cortex. This grid cell is very amazing. I will show a brief video to you later. Grid cells were activated when the rat passed certain location. Together, this location form a hexagonal grid, each grid cell reacting a unique spatial pattern. correctly list grid cell from a coordinate system that allow for spatial navigation. This is a very amazing experiment using a single cell recording in a cell in a rat brain in a freely moving environment. After several minutes later, you can see hexagons appear in the pictures. Can you see the sixth angle figure? Just imagine. Okay, this is called a grid cell. Grid cell. So because of their contribution, the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 2014 was shared by both of the distinguished scholars for their achievement in spatial navigation in the animal, called a position system in the brains. In addition to press cells and the grid cell, we also rely on head direction cells and border cells to complete the full spatial navigation. This is not only for animals, but also in humans. And for Alzheimer's disease, the pattern of initial pathology shows a striking overlap with the head direction cells circuit. This included pathology to the entorhinal cortex, where both grid cell and head direction cells are found, and the anterior dorsal thalamus and the retrospinal cortex. And damage to this region, together with hippocampus, where including many spread cells, represented devastation of the neuron circuits, known to represent head direction, path integration, and the current location. And over the past years, I've published several papers in patients developing a topographical disorientation after a single cerebral lesion on the right side, including parahippocampus, posterior parietal cortex, thalamus, and the retrospinal cortex. In each area, the patient may manifest a different kind of topographical disorientation, including the landmark agnosia after lesion to lingual gyrus, egocentric disorientation after lesion to posterior parietal cortex, and Hayden disorientation after damage to posterior cingulate, or retrospinal cortex, and anterograde disorientation after damage to parahippocampus. This is the base for our future developing questionnaire. And this area is quite fit the areas initially involved in patients with Alzheimer's disease regarding the neuropathological change. And next, I will present some clinical viewpoint regarding the spatial navigation impairment. In my presentation, topographical disorientation, wayfinding difficulty, spatial navigation impairment, getting lost, mission, sometimes is interchangeable. And our first paper on this topic published about 20 years ago. In this paper, we showed that wayfinding difficulty can be one of the most incipient symptoms in some of the patients with Alzheimer's disease. And several years later, we published another paper, found that among the 180 patients, about half of the patients have topographical disorientation, and about 20% have ever been lost or missing. This is very serious. But at the time, there is nothing to do with the score of traditional neuropsychology test. And another paper described that usually people would think that a patient with Alzheimer's disease would be lost in novel places. But actually, their first ever getting lost occurred in familiar environment. This finding is very important for most of the caregivers. Because of no questionnaire or test can be related to wayfinding difficulty or can predict getting lost in the future, we decided to develop a questionnaire to answer this question. We called Questionnaire on Everyday Navigation Ability. Abbreviation is QUINA. This is, we published in 2014. And we use the concept of the topographical disorientation after single cerebral lesion. And the questionnaire proved to be feasible, reliable, and valid to assess spatial navigation in people with mild cognitive impairment due to AD or AD dementia. And the cutoff 7 for caregiver version can predict getting dosed with AUC about 0.8. And the questionnaire have two versions. One is for patient and the other is for caregiver. And the discrepancy between caregiver and the patient can predict the times of the getting dosed. Usually, patient would overestimate their ability. So this is quite interesting finding. And we also follow about 200 people for about 3 years to see a new event called incidence or the recurrence rate. The picture is on the slides. And in this paper, we found that the KC is very popular in Taiwan, Japan, and many Asia countries. The orientation, inattention items and inattention item in quina and the orientation item in KC are related to getting those incidents. And if there is no safety range set up by caregiver, will increase the risk of getting those recurrence. So we suggest the caregiver to let their patient to assess KC and quina to improve orientation and attention, may delay and prevent getting those incidents. And for those who have already get lost, to set a safety range may reduce the getting those recurrence. And this is quina to test several kinds of neurodegenerative disease. You can see only Alzheimer's Continuum show more often getting those events, and they have a score more than 7. As I said, is a cutoff point. And in the following year, we would like to know how to assess this patient in real-world condition. And this is another definition for topographical disorientation or spatial navigation impairment. We define getting lost different from missing. Getting lost is defined unable to reach a destination in familiar places, while the navigator's consciousness is clear and the environmental cues, such as light, landmarks, are adequate. And the missing is defined. One, he or she could not to deal with wayfinding difficulty on their own. So or call for help from others, indicating a poor prefrontal function. And this moment, timely aids from others may avoid unwanted result. The pathology in initial Alzheimer's continuum involved region critical spatial navigation. So this is a very good point for spatial navigation to be potential markers to make a early diagnosis. We investigate 586 incidents of getting lost and missing. You can find people even in MCI stage may have getting lost and missing, but most of the patients with neurodegenerative dementia or other kind of dementia suffering from getting lost due to Alzheimer's continuum. And they may have getting lost only or with injury. And this is a picture showing the different manifestation in MCI and in dementia. Clearly, you can see more getting lost occurred in MCI and more missing occurred in dementia patient. And dementia patient have more missing and more injuries. So this information is very important for caregiver. As I mentioned, most of the getting lost occurred in getting lost or missing incidents occurred more in Alzheimer's continuum. And MCI have more getting lost than missing, and the dementia more missing than getting lost. More injuries occur to those with dementia than MCI, and those with were missing than getting lost. In Taiwan, we have about 400, we have 4 million people older than 65. And among them, about 1 million have a mild cognitive impairment or dementia. So it means that more than 1 million at the risk of getting lost. So as I mentioned, we would like to design a real-world device to detect spatial navigation. We call this a PJ device. This is an air view of our campus located in National Cheng Kung University, and we provide iPad with the map to the participants, and we teach them how to reach each of the 5 points, and when they get there, just put to indicate that they are there. This is the procedure. This is a map provided to the participants, and we started from a famous building at Chimelo, and we teach the patient, we taught the patient if they reach the target, they just press the button and indicating they are reached the destination, and turn the angle to the starting point. Okay, and this is the result. We invited cognitive unimpaired and MCI due to AD or prodromal AD and mild Alzheimer's disease. This is their demographic data. Clearly shown that prodromal AD and AD showed impaired episodic memory. And this is the QINA. As I mentioned, the MCI due to AD and AD with a QINA score more than 7. And many of the MCI patients and most of the Alzheimer's disease, mild Alzheimer's disease patients experience getting those events before the experiment. And this is the result. I can only show part of the result to you. The QINA, we measure the deviation. The patient will put the place to indicating they are there, and we use GPS to make a comparison. And we have a linear deviation between the patient's response and the real location. We call the linear deviation. And the linear deviation can differentiate the 3 groups very, very clearly. It means that prodromal AD is worse than CU, and AD even worse than prodromal AD. And if we use hit rate means below the 16 meters as an error. In the same way, they can clearly differentiate the 3 groups very clearly. But you know, in the real world situation, the test is very complicated. One is the manpower. The second is the weather. Sometimes it's rainy, sometimes it's sunny, sometimes typhoon, sometimes it's cloudy. The patient sometimes would cancel the test. So we decided to use a virtual reality to replace the real world and to test the spatial navigation impairment. But this time, we cannot, it is impossible to test patients with mild Alzheimer's disease. They just could not understand the instrument. So we just test MCI due to AD and cognitively unimpaired. We ate subjective cognitive decline to aid this group because SCD is among the AD continuum from normal to MCI. And we put the real world scenario to virtual reality, and we also provide a map and teach the participants to use the map and use the toolbar and to indicate the direction and press the button indicating they reach the target. The procedure is essentially the same as the real world test. And we also measure the linear deviation as a parameter to make a comparison, same as the real world situation. And this is the scenario when the PJVR was performing from a third-person viewpoint. we use a HTC.
好，请问几分钟？
Okay. And this is a viewpoint from the participants. Professor Yang might have ever been to Zhiqiang campus. It's very similar to the real ones. Yeah. And as I mentioned, we test the CU, SCD, and MCI due to AD. And cyber sickness is a question, is a problem, because in our study, about 14% of the participants experience nausea, vomiting, and vertigo. But as compared with Western countries, our cyber sickness rate is higher. I don't know why. But we asked the HTC to improve their software, and the rate of the cyber sickness reduced. So in the future, we will try to improve and improve to get the patient more comfortable, the participants more comfortable. This is the demographic data for the 3 participants. Again, you can see most of the performance in CU and SCD are much better than MCI. And this is Casey, very popular neuropsychology test in Taiwan, Japan, and many Asian countries. As you can see, most of the items show MCI is the worst as compared with the other 2 groups. And this is the Quina. Again, you can see the MCI perform the worst among the 3 groups, but the SCD and the CU basically the same. And this is the linear deviation. I just showed the principal results. The results is very similar to Equina response. And this is the plot of Quina. I just introduced you previously, and the linear deviation. Their correlation is not bad. And most of the MCI, more deviation in linear deviation, and their questionnaire score is higher. And most of the CU are close to 0, means better performance. And the SCD diverse. If I try to divide it, SCD, into A and B according to the linear deviation at 40 meters. 40 meters is upper limit for most of the CU groups. Then you can see we divided SCD-A and SCD-B. The performance of linear deviation and the Quina for SCD-B is very similar to those of the performance of MCI. I mean, maybe some of them will convert to MCI in the future, but this is ongoing. We still follow up there annually, so maybe in the future I can show you the result of our their progression. This is a comparison of 2 Equina and linear deviation among the 4 groups. Adding after SCD were divided to A and B. Okay. After we divided SCD to A and B, we want to know what's the difference between A and B. As you can see, the B is older than A. And in Casey, their abstract thinking and the verbal fluency is worse. Maybe some executive dysfunction, subcortical lesion, maybe. So implication for this division, we found some individual with CD would progress to MCI in years, and the SCD-B impaired spatial navigation, cognition with additional biomarkers perhaps may increase the power to predict the conversion from SCD to MCI. And regarding the safety, pay more attention to spatial navigation impairment may reduce the occurrence of unwanted events. In in general, for PJVR summary, PJVR is a feasible tool to assess spatial cognition in individuals with MCI due to AD, and cyber sickness can be improved. To simplify, PJVR to be practical is necessary, and we will refine PJVR to welcome the era of using digital cognitive assessment and plasma biomarkers to aid detecting people with MCI due to AD earlier. And regarding the biomarkers, especially in dementia, we use a clinical, such as memory and other cognitive function, or we use a manifestation, and we use a neuropsychological test, such as spatial navigation or episodic memory. We also use MR imaging, focus on hippocampal atrophy. And we also use a PET imaging, including amyloid PET or tau PET. Recently, more and more biofluids were introduced to dementia detection and diagnosis, including CSF or plasma biomarkers. For a biomarker, by definition, they can help clinicians to make an early diagnosis, early detection, to make differential diagnosis, monitor disease progression, and to verify the efficacy of clinical trials or treatment. Based on this, our PJVR spatial navigation, we can detect patients with AD continuum more early, and we can differentiate AD from other type of dementia. And we monitor disease progression is ongoing. But we would like, actually we have, with other researchers trying to persuade a pharmaceutical company to aid spatial navigation as a parameter to see the effect of clinical trial and treatment. But perhaps in the future, we will add this parameter. So spatial navigation appears long before. I hope I can convince you before the happening of getting those of missing, and it's a potential markers on AD continuum to detect spatial navigation impairment in an ecologically valid way may help to make an accurate diagnosis when one is in the very early stage of AD continuum, and to prevent against getting those and missing. I would like to thank many professors, research assistants, graduate students, and supporters, and our institute and the centers, and also from many, many grants from our government. And also thank for your attention.
Thanks, Professor Bai's excellent speech. Because we have the 20 minutes discussion, so if you have any question, you can use that time. So now we are moved to the next speaker.